In 1886, America had more millionaires than any country on Earth. The Vanderbilts spent $6 million on a single party. Meanwhile, 3 blocks away, a family of 9 shared a room the size of your bathroom, and the only running water was the sewage seeping through the walls. They called this era the Gilded Age, not the Golden Age. Gilded, as in a thin layer of gold paint covering something rotten underneath. And here's the thing nobody mentions. Most people lived beneath that paint. This is what life was really like for them. Oh, before I forget, if you're one of those people who puts these on to fall asleep, I'd love it if you subscribed. And honestly, I'm always curious where everyone's at. Like, are you in bed? On a couch? What time is it there? Drop it in the comments if you feel like it. I read them in the morning with my coffee, and it's kind of nice knowing someone in Dublin was listening at 4 a.m. while I was asleep. All right, so we're heading back to 1886. But before we go anywhere, get comfortable. I mean it. Fix those pillows, pull up that blanket. Where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. Trust me on this one. So, picture this. You're standing on the deck of a ship called the Adriatic. You've been at sea for 12 days. 12 days of vomiting, of sleeping in bunks stacked 3 high in steerage, of eating salted beef that tastes like someone's mistake. 12 days of wondering if you made the right choice leaving everything behind. Your name is Seamus Callahan. You're 20 years old. You're from a village in County Cork that nobody in America has ever heard of, and honestly, that's fine by you. Your father died 2 winters ago from something the doctor called lung fever, but was probably just poverty dressed up in medical terms. Your mother spent the next 2 years saving every penny, every half penny, selling eggs and mending clothes and doing whatever work she could find. Also, you could be standing right here, right now, with $3 sewn into the lining of your coat and a piece of paper with your cousin Patrick's address in New York. The wind is cold. It's October. The kind of cold that gets into your bones and reminds you that you're alive, even when you wish you weren't. Around you, hundreds of other passengers are crowding toward the rail, pushing, shoving, trying to see. And then you see it. Lady Liberty. Now here's the thing. In 1886, the Statue of Liberty has only been standing for about 2 weeks. It was just dedicated on October 28th. So when you see her, she's brand new, shiny. Well, not shiny exactly. More like a dull copper colour that hasn't yet turned green. But she's there, rising out of the harbour, holding that torch up like a promise. You watch the other passengers weeping, grown men, women clutching rosary beads. Everyone seems to think this means something, that America is going to be different, that Lady Liberty is telling them, you made it, you're safe now, you want to believe. That you really do. But you've also heard stories. Your cousin Patrick's letters were never quite as hopeful as everyone pretended. The streets aren't paved with gold, he wrote once. They're not even paved. And there's something living in the walls of my building that screams at night. You figured he was joking. He wasn't. The ship docks at Castle Garden, which is basically a big round fort at the southern tip of Manhattan that the city has converted into an immigration processing centre. It's chaos. Pure, screaming, overwhelming chaos. There are thousands of people, all trying to move in different directions at once. Officials are shouting instructions in English that you mostly understand, though their American accents make everything sound faster, harder, like the words have sharp edges. You wait in line for what feels like hours. They check your eyes for disease. They ask you questions. Where are you from? Do you have money? Are you a criminal? Are you an anarchist? Do you have someone waiting for you? Yes, you say. My cousin, Patrick Callahan, Orchard Street. They let you through, and then you're outside, and the first thing that hits you isn't the sight of New York City, it's the smell. Okay, so, let me paint you a picture here. New York City in 1886 has about 1.5 million people and roughly 150,000 horses. Each horse produces about 20 pounds of manure per day, every single day. That's 3 million pounds of horse poop hitting the streets of Manhattan daily, and nobody's cleaning it up fast enough. So the smell it's like nothing you've ever experienced. It's manure and rotting garbage and coal smoke and unwashed bodies and something sweet that might be molasses from the sugar refineries, but also might be death. You can taste it. The air is thick with it. It coats the inside of your mouth. Welcome to America. The streets are worse than the smell, if that's possible. They're not paved, most of them, just packed dirt that turns to mud when it rains and dust when it doesn't. And the mud, it's not just mud. It's mud mixed with horse manure and garbage and whatever else people have thrown out their windows. In summer, apparently the whole mess dries out and the wind picks it up and blows it everywhere, so you're basically breathing in manure dust. Fun times. You start walking. Orchard Street. That's where Patrick lives. You have no idea how to get there, but you're too proud to ask for directions, so you just start moving in what seems like the right direction. The buildings are taller than anything you've ever seen. 4 stories, 5 stories, some even taller. They're packed so close together that the streets feel like canyons. The sunlight barely reaches the ground. Everything feels close, cramped, like the city itself is trying to squeeze you. And the noise. Holy Mother of God, the noise! Horses clattering on cobblestones, vendors screaming in a dozen different languages, children running through the streets, barefoot, dodging carts, dogs barking. Somewhere, someone is playing a fiddle, badly. Somewhere else, someone is having an argument that sounds like it might turn into a murder. You pass a dead horse lying in the middle of the street. Nobody seems to be doing anything about it. People are just walking around it, stepping over its legs, going about their business. A few flies have already found it. In a few days you'll learn the city will send someone to cut it up and cart it away. But for now, it's just there, rotting, in the middle of everything. This is not what the postcard showed. You walk for what feels like hours, getting lost twice, doubling back, asking directions from a man selling roasted chestnuts who looks at you like you're stupid when you can't understand his Italian accented English. Eventually, somehow, you find Orchard Street. It's worse than you imagined. The buildings here are called tenements, and they're basically apartment buildings designed by someone who hated people. They're 6 stories tall, maybe 50 feet wide, with maybe 16 apartments per floor. The apartments themselves are tiny. 3 rooms if you're lucky, 2 if you're not, and you're never lucky. The hallways are dark, like seriously dark. There are no windows, no gas lamps, nothing. You feel your way up the stairs, hand on the wall, trying not to think about what you're touching. The wall is damp, something sticky. You don't want to know. 3rd floor, apartment 4B. That's what Patrick's letter said. You knock. A woman opens the door. She's maybe 30, but she looks 50. Hair pulled back, face lined with exhaustion, a baby on her hip that's crying in that weak, hungry way that makes your stomach clench. Patrick Callahan, you ask. She stares at you for a long moment. Then she laughs. Not a happy laugh. More like a laugh that says the universe has played another joke and she's too tired to cry about it. Patrick's dead, she says. Typhoid. 3 months ago. And just like that, your plan is gone. Your cousin is gone. Your safety net is gone. You're standing in a dark hallway in a strange city with $3 and no idea what to do next. The woman looks at you, really looks at you, and something in her face softens just a little. You're his cousin, aren't you? The one from Cork? You nod. She sighs. Come in, she says. I'm Mary, Patrick's wife. Was Patrick's wife. She steps aside to let you through. We can figure something out. We always do. The apartment is tiny. 2 rooms plus a kitchen that's really just a corner with a stove. There's a bed, a table, 2 chairs. The walls are covered with some kind of wallpaper that's peeling off in strips. The floor is bare wood, worn smooth in the places where people walk. In the bigger room, there are 6 people. Mary and the baby, 3 children, the oldest maybe 8, and an old man sitting in the corner staring at nothing. This is everyone, Mary says. Patrick's father there. He came with Patrick years ago. Doesn't speak much English. Doesn't speak much anything anymore. The children look at you with big eyes, hungry eyes. You recognize that look. You've worn it yourself. Where do you sleep, you ask? Mary gestures at the floor. We manage. There's not enough space for another person. There's barely enough space for the people already here. The room feels like a cage, like something designed to break the human spirit 1 square inch at a time. But Mary is already pushing a bowl of something toward you. Potato soup, she says. It's watery and there's not much in it, but it's hot. Eat. You eat. It tastes like nothing and everything at the same time. Like home. Like being taken care of. Like maybe, just maybe, you haven't made the worst mistake of your life. Later, much later, you'll learn the full story. How Patrick came to America full of hope. How he worked in a factory that made nails, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, for $8 a week. How he got sick during the summer, when the city's water supply turned bad and typhoid swept through the tenements like wildfire. How he died in this apartment, on that bed right there, while Mary held his hand and prayed. But that's later. For now, you just eat your soup and try not to think about what comes next. Outside, the city is growing dark. Not the gentle darkness of a country night, with stars and moon and silence. This is a different kind of dark. The gas lamps on the street flicker to life, but they don't reach inside these buildings. Here, on the 3rd floor of a tenement on Orchard Street, the darkness is complete, total, the kind of darkness that makes you forget what light looks like. Mary lights a single candle. It's all they can afford. You can sleep by the stove, she says. It's warmest there. In winter, everyone sleeps near the stove. We take turns being closest. You stretch out on the floor. The wood is hard, unforgiving. You can feel every knot, every crack. Somewhere in the building a baby is crying. Somewhere else 2 men are arguing in a language you don't recognize. The walls are thin. You can hear everything, every cough, every footstep, every whisper. You think about your mother back in Cork. Right now, she's probably sitting by the fire, wondering if you made it safely. You promised you'd write as soon as you arrived. You'll have to find paper, find a pen, find a way to tell her that everything is fine without actually lying. You think about Patrick, the cousin you never knew well but always planned to know better, the man who was supposed to show you how to survive in this strange new world. Now he's in the ground, and you're lying on his floor eating his widow's soup. You think about tomorrow, You need to find work. You need money. You have $3, which sounds like a lot until you realize that a week's rent in this apartment is $2.50. That leaves you 50 cents for food, for clothes, for everything else. You have maybe a week before you're completely broke. The candle flickers. Mary blows it out. The darkness swallows everything. Somewhere in the building, that baby is still crying. Not like your cozy bed right now, huh? Unlike the soft mattress you're sinking into, this floor is just bare wood over bare stone, and every position you try makes some part of your body ache. But you're exhausted, bone-tired, the kind of tired that comes from 12 days at sea and 1 day in a city that feels like it's trying to swallow you whole. So you close your eyes and you sleep, or you try to sleep. The sounds of the tenement are constant, a symphony of human misery, coughing, crying, someone retching, someone praying in Latin, the words rising and falling like a tide. The building itself seems to groan, settling into the night like an old man lowering himself into a chair. At some point, you dream. You dream of green fields and your mother's voice and a future that looked different from this. You dream of the Statue of Liberty, but in your dream she's not holding a torch. She's holding a sign that says, "Turn back. You've made a terrible mistake." You wake up before dawn. Grey light is filtering through the single window, which is so dirty it might as well be painted. Mary is already up, feeding the baby, getting the children ready for whatever the day holds. "Morning," she says. "Sleep okay?" You don't answer. You both know the truth. Outside, the city is waking up. You can hear it. The horses, the carts, the vendors setting up their stalls. The endless grinding machinery of a city that never stops, never rests, never gives anyone a break. Today, you need to find work. Today, your new life in America really begins. You have no idea how hard it's going to be, but you're about to find out. Mary hands you a piece of bread. It's stale, hard around the edges, the kind of bread that fights back when you try to chew it. But it's food, and you're grateful. "Find the docks first," she says. "They always need men to unload ships, or try the construction sites. They're building everywhere these days." She pauses, hesitates, looks at you with something like pity. "And Seamus? Don't take it personal. What they say, what they do, it's just how things are here. You don't understand what she means. Not yet." You step outside into a morning that smells like coal smoke and garbage and something cooking from a cart down the street. The sun is barely up, but the city is already loud, already moving, already grinding through another day. You start walking. The first place you try is a construction site a few blocks away. They're putting up a new building, something massive, 6 stories tall. Workers are swarming all over it like ants on a hill. There's a man standing near the entrance with a clipboard, watching everyone come and go. Looking for work, you say. Strong back, hard worker. He looks at you, takes in your clothes, your face, your accent. "Where you from?" "Ireland, County Cork." He snorts. "We got enough mix already. Try somewhere else." That's it. No interview, no chance to prove yourself. Just a word, a dismissal, and you're walking away. You try the docks next. It's a long walk, maybe 40 minutes through streets that are getting more crowded by the minute. The East River docks are massive, stretching along the waterfront like a forest of wooden piers and warehouses. Ships are lined up waiting to be unloaded. Mountains of crates and barrels and sacks sit everywhere. This looks promising. All these ships, all this cargo. They must need workers. You find the man in charge. A big fellow with a red face and a belly that speaks to too many beers. Looking for work, you say again. Strong back, hard worker. He looks at you. Same look as before. Same calculation in his eyes. You Irish? Yes, sir. He shakes his head. Got enough of you lot. Causing trouble. Always drinking. Always fighting. Try the factories. You want to argue. You want to tell him that you've never caused trouble in your life, that you don't even like drinking that much, that you're not the same as whoever he's thinking of. But you can see in his face that it won't matter. He's not seeing you. He's seeing everyone who came before you, everyone with your accent and your face and your story. You keep walking. The next place is a warehouse that needs men to move crates. The sign out front says, "Help wanted" in big letters. Your heart lifts a little. Maybe this is the one. But underneath the "Help wanted" sign, someone has added another sign. Smaller, almost apologetic. No Irish need apply. You stand there for a long moment, staring at those 4 words. 4 words that tell you everything you need to know about your place in this new world. 4 words that your cousin Patrick probably stared at too back when he first arrived. 4 words that will follow you for years. You keep walking. The next few hours are a blur of rejection. A lumber yard on Cherry Street. A man selling coal who needs someone to make deliveries. A bakery of all things where you thought maybe, just maybe, your accent wouldn't matter if you were just carrying sacks of flour. Wrong. The bakery owner actually laughed. Laughed right in your face. "An Irishman in my shop," he said. "Your kind can't even stay sober long enough to pour the yeast." You wanted to hit him. You really did. Your fists actually clenched, and for one hot second you imagined what it would feel like to knock that smirk right off his face. But you didn't. Because that would prove him right, wouldn't it? That would be the drunk, fighting Irish everyone expects. So you unclenched your fists and walked away and hated yourself a little for being so reasonable. By midday you've tried 8 different places, a factory that makes bolts, a company that builds wagons, a butcher who needs someone to clean up, a stable that's looking for hands. The answer is always the same. Sometimes it's polite. "Sorry, we're not hiring your kind right now." Sometimes it's not. "Get out of here, Mick. Find your own kind. Your kind, your people." As if being Irish is a disease, something contagious, something that might spread to the good American workers if they let you get too close. You're getting hungry. That piece of bread was hours ago, and your stomach is starting to complain. But you can't spend money on food. Every penny matters now. Every cent is the difference between survival and disaster. You keep walking. The afternoon sun is actually warm, which would be nice except that it makes the street smell worse. The garbage in the gutters is cooking. The horse manure is cooking. Everything is cooking, releasing smells you didn't even know existed. You pass through neighborhoods that change every few blocks. Here, everyone is speaking Italian. Over there, it's German. A few streets down, you hear Yiddish for the first time, a language you've never encountered before. It sounds almost like German, but not quite. Different. Musical. New York, you're learning, is not one city. It's a dozen cities stacked on top of each other, each with its own language, its own food, its own rules. And the Irish. They have their own neighborhoods too, centered around 5 Points and parts of the Lower East Side. Your people, your kind, squeezed into the worst blocks, the darkest tenements, the jobs nobody else wants. Late in the afternoon, when your feet hurt and your hope is running low, you find yourself in front of a factory on the edge of the Bowery. It's a big brick building, 5 stories tall with black smoke pouring out of chimneys on the roof. Through the grimy windows you can see machinery moving, endless and relentless. The building looks angry somehow, like it's been here forever, squatting on this corner, eating men and spitting them out. The bricks are stained black from decades of coal smoke. The windows are so dirty they might as well be painted. Everything about this place says, "We will use you. We don't care about you. You are fuel." But there's a sign on the door that says "Workers Needed." No second sign, no conditions, just those 2 words. You stand there for a moment, watching men file in and out of the entrance. Their faces are blank, exhausted. Some of them are limping. One man is missing 2 fingers on his left hand, the stumps healed over but still angry looking. He sees you staring. "Nail press," he says, almost conversationally. "Got tired, got careless. It happens." He keeps walking. You take a breath, and you go inside. The smell hits you first. Oil and metal and something sweet that might be machine grease. It's hot in here, much hotter than outside. The air is thick, hard to breathe. Somewhere deep in the building, machines are roaring, a constant thunder that vibrates through the floor. The man at the desk is small, thin, with spectacles and a mustache that looks like a dead caterpillar. He's writing something in a ledger when you walk up. "Looking for work," you say. 3rd time's the charm. 4th. You've lost count. He looks up, studies you. "Where from?" "Ireland." You brace yourself. Here it comes. The rejection, the insult, the 4 words. But instead, he just nods. "We pay $1.20 a day," he says. 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts. You start at 6 in the morning, you finish at 6 at night. Half hour for lunch. You buy your own food. You miss a day, you don't get paid. You're late, you get docked. You cause trouble, you're out. He pauses. "We don't care where you're from. We care if you can work." "Can you work?" "Yes, sir," you say. "Yes, sir, I can work." "Good. Start tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Don't be late." He writes something in his ledger and waves you away. That's it. No handshake, no welcome, just a transaction. You're a body now, a pair of hands, a unit of labour to be purchased and used, but you have a job. Walking back to Orchard Street, you feel something you haven't felt since you stepped off that ship. Hope. Small and fragile, like a candle flame in a drafty room, but real. $1.20 a day, that's $7.20 a week. Minus the $2.50 for rent, you'd have almost $5 left over. For food, for clothes, for saving. You're doing the math in your head as you walk. If you save $1 a week, that's $52 a year. Passage from Cork to New York cost about $30. So in maybe a year you could send for your mother, bring her here, show her what her sacrifice made possible. The thought makes you walk faster, even though your feet are screaming. The streets are getting more crowded as afternoon turns to evening. Workers pouring out of factories heading home, vendors closing up, children playing in the gutters. The math isn't perfect. You'll learn. There are costs you don't know about yet. The company store, the fines for breaking rules you didn't know existed, the donations to the foreman if you want to keep your job, but that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, you have good news. Mary smiles when you tell her. Actually smiles, and for a moment you can see the woman she must have been before Patrick died. Before this city ground her down. The children gather around, excited by the energy in the room. Even the old man in the corner seems to stir a little. $1.20, Mary says. That's good. That's real good. Patrick was making $8 a week when she stops, when he got sick. You eat dinner together. It's the same watery potato soup as last night, but tonight it tastes different. Better. Like possibility. After dinner, Mary tells you about the factory. It's a nail factory, she says. They take iron rods and turn them into nails. Millions of nails. Nails for the buildings going up all over the city, for the railroads pushing west, for houses being built everywhere America is expanding. It's hot work, she warns, and loud. You'll want to bring something to stuff in your ears, or you'll go deaf like some of them. And be careful around the machines. The machines don't care if you get in the way. They just keep going. She tells you about Patrick, how he was careful, always careful, but the factory took something from him anyway. The noise, the heat, the endless repetition. He'd come home some nights so tired he could barely eat. His hands would shake from the work. His eyes would be red from the coal dust. Some nights, Mary says, he'd sit right there in that chair and stare at the wall for an hour before he could even speak. The factory does that. Takes the words right out of you. Takes everything. She's quiet for a moment. The children have stopped listening, distracted by something. The old man in the corner is mumbling to himself in Irish, the words too soft to make out. But he never complained, Mary continues. Not once. He'd get up the next morning and go back, because that's what you do, because there's no other choice. And he believed, Seamus. He really believed that if he worked hard enough, saved enough, things would get better. That someday we'd have a real apartment, maybe a house, maybe... She trails off. You wait. Maybe we'd go somewhere green, she finishes. Somewhere that doesn't smell like garbage. Somewhere the children could play outside without stepping in horse dung. She laughs, but there's no humour in it. But he did it, Mary says. Every day. For us. Because that's what you do. You understand. You understood it back in Ireland, watching your mother work herself raw to save your passage money. You understand it now, lying on the floor of a stranger's apartment, getting ready to walk into a factory that will use you up until there's nothing left. That's what you do. Outside, the city is settling into night. The gas lamps are flickering on, one by one. Somewhere in the distance you can hear music playing. A fiddle, maybe, or a squeeze box. Something Irish, something from home, drifting through the streets of New York. You think about what's waiting for you tomorrow. 12 hours in a factory. Heat and noise and machines that could take your fingers, your hands, your life if you're not careful. $1.20 for selling your body one day at a time. It's not the America you imagined. Not the land of opportunity from the posters and the stories. But it's real. And starting tomorrow, it's yours. You find your spot by the stove and stretch out on the floor. The wood is just as hard as last night, but somehow it feels different. You have a purpose now, a direction, something to wake up for. The sounds of the tenement are familiar already. The crying babies, the coughing, the arguments through thin walls, the building settling and groaning like something alive. You close your eyes and listen to the city breathe. Not like your comfortable bed right now, is it? While you're all warm and cozy, sinking into your pillow, Seamus is lying on a wooden floor, bones aching, getting ready to walk into hell for $1.20. But here's the thing about Seamus, about all the Seamuses who came to America in those years. They did it. They got up before dawn and walked into those factories and worked until they couldn't see straight. They did it because there was no other choice, because the alternative was going back to Ireland, where there was nothing, because they believed, despite everything, that if they worked hard enough, long enough, things might get better. And sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't, but they showed up, every single day. Tomorrow Seamus is going to find out exactly what that means. The candle goes out. Darkness fills the room, and somewhere in the city a church bell is ringing. counting down the hours until morning, until 6 o'clock, until his new life really begins. He doesn't know what's waiting for him. The machines, the noise, the accidents that happen when tired men meet unforgiving equipment, the foremen who treat workers like animals, the 14-year-old kids working next to grown men, their fingers too small for the work, their futures already stolen. He doesn't know any of that yet. All he knows is that tomorrow he has somewhere to be, and that's more than he had this morning. So he sleeps, or he tries to, and somewhere in the city the factories are already humming, waiting for morning, waiting for fresh bodies to feed into their machines, waiting for Seamus Callahan to find out what it really means to work in the Gilded Age. 5:30 in the morning. The sky is still dark. Mary is already awake, pressing a piece of bread into your hand. "Eat," she says. "You'll need it. The bread is harder than yesterday's. You don't complain." She hands you something else, a rag, torn from an old shirt. "For your ears," she says. "Stuff it in when the machines get too loud. Won't help much, but it's something." You thank her. You're not sure what else to say. The walk to the factory takes 20 minutes. The streets are already filling up with workers, all of them moving in the same direction like a river flowing towards some terrible sea. Nobody talks. Nobody makes eye contact. They just walk, shoulders hunched, faces blank. Some of them are coughing. That wet, rattling cough you've already learned to associate with factory workers. You join the current and let it carry you. The man walking next to you is maybe 50, but he looks 70. His hands are gnarled, twisted into permanent claws from years of gripping tools. He catches you looking and smiles, but there's nothing happy in it. "Fresh meat," he says. "Good luck." You don't know what to say, so you just nod. The factory looks different in the pre-dawn darkness. Worse, somehow. The windows glow orange from the furnaces inside, and smoke is already pouring from the chimneys. It looks like something from a nightmare, like something that eats people. A group of children runs past you, heading for a side entrance. The oldest can't be more than 10. They're laughing about something, shoving each other, acting like kids. In a few minutes they'll be inside that building, working machines that could kill them. You go inside anyway. The noise hits you first. It's not just loud, it's violent. The machines are screaming metal on metal, a sound that gets inside your skull and rattles your teeth. You've never heard anything like it. Back in Ireland, the loudest thing was thunder, or maybe a cow giving birth. This is different. This is the sound of industry, the sound of progress. It sounds like the end of the world. You remember the rag Mary gave you. You tear it in half and stuff pieces into your ears. She was right. It doesn't help much, but it's something. The factory floor is massive. Rows and rows of machines, stretching back into the darkness like metal soldiers. Men and boys are already at their stations, feeding rods, turning cranks, pulling levers. Above them, belts and pulleys spin constantly, connecting everything to a central steam engine somewhere in the building's guts. A foreman grabs your arm and pulls you toward a machine. He's shouting something, but you can barely hear him over the noise. His face is red, impatient. He mimes what you're supposed to do. Take the iron rod from the pile, feed it into the machine, wait for the nail to come out the other side. Stack the finished nails in the crate. Repeat. Simple enough, right? The heat is the next thing you notice. The furnaces are burning constantly, heating the iron until it's soft enough to shape. The air is thick with it. Within 5 minutes, you're sweating through your shirt. Within 10, you can feel the heat baking into your skin, into your bones. The sweat runs down your face, gets in your eyes, but you can't wipe it away because your hands are busy feeding rods. You start working. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. The rhythm is hypnotic, mind-numbing. Your hands move without thinking. Your brain goes somewhere else, somewhere far away from this hellhole, somewhere green and quiet. You think about the fields back home, the smell of rain on grass, your mother's voice calling you in for dinner. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. An hour passes, maybe 2. Time doesn't work the same way in here. There are no windows you can see through, no clocks, nothing to tell you how long you've been standing in one spot doing the same motion over and over. The only markers are the crates of nails. When one fills up, someone comes and takes it away and replaces it with an empty one. That's how you know time is passing. Your back starts to hurt, then your shoulders, then your feet. The floor is concrete, hard and unforgiving, and standing on it for hours is like standing on stone. You shift your weight. Doesn't help. There's no comfortable position. There's just pain and less pain. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. And then you see the boy. He's working at the machine next to yours. He can't be more than 12, maybe 11. Skinny, pale, with dark circles under his eyes that make him look like a ghost. His hands are too small for the work. His arms are too thin. But he's doing it anyway, feeding rods and stacking nails just like you. He catches you staring and shrugs. Been here 2 years, he says, or shouts really, over the noise. Started when I was 10. You don't know what to say, so you don't say anything. You just keep working. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. The boy's name is Tommy. You'll learn later. Tommy Sullivan. His father died in a construction accident 3 years ago, fell off a scaffold and broke his neck. His mother does laundry for rich families uptown, scrubbing their sheets until her hands crack and bleed. But it's not enough. So Tommy works. Has been working since he was old enough to reach the machines. 2 years of this. 2 years of feeding rods and stacking nails. 2 years of heat and noise and danger. And he's 12 years old. He's not the only kid in here. Now that you're looking, you can see them everywhere. Boys and girls, some of them barely tall enough to see over the equipment. They work the smaller machines, the ones that require nimble fingers. They sweep up the metal shavings that pile up like silver snow. They carry materials from one station to another, weaving between the machines like they're playing some kind of deadly game. One girl, maybe 8 or 9, is sorting nails by size. Her hands move so fast they blur. She's been doing this so long it's automatic. Muscle memory. She doesn't even look at what she's doing. Nobody seems to think this is strange. Nobody seems to care. This is just how things are. Around midday, a whistle blows. Lunch. You have 30 minutes. You find a corner away from the machines and sit down on the floor. Your legs are shaking. Your hands are cramped into claws from gripping rods all morning. Your ears are ringing even with the rags stuffed in them. Tommy sits down next to you. He pulls out a tin can and pries off the lid. Inside is some kind of cold mush. He sees you looking. Oatmeal, he says, from yesterday. My ma makes a big pot on Sunday and it lasts all week. First day, he asks. You nod. Gets easier, he says, or you get used to it. Same thing, maybe. He eats a spoonful of cold oatmeal and chews thoughtfully. The trick is not to think, he says. Just do. Thinking slows you down, makes you tired faster. And when you slow down, when you get tired, That's when the machines get you. Get you? Tommy holds up his left hand. His pinky finger is missing. Gone at the second knuckle, the skin healed over into a smooth pink stump. Nail press, he says. Last winter. Wasn't paying attention. Was thinking about Christmas, about whether my ma could afford a present. Machine didn't care what I was thinking about. Just took the finger right off. He says it like he's talking about the weather. Like losing a finger is just something that happens, like rain or cold or hunger. Like it's the price you pay for being alive. You look around the factory floor. Now that you know what to look for, you see it everywhere. Missing fingers, missing hands, burn scars crawling up arms and necks. One man is missing an eye, the socket covered by a leather patch that's dark with oil and sweat. The machines don't care, Tommy says. They just keep going. You're in the way, that's your problem. Nobody stops the machines for blood. The whistle blows again. Lunch is over. You stand up on legs that don't want to work and walk back to your machine. The afternoon stretches ahead of you like a desert. 6 more hours. 6 more hours of heat and noise and rods and nails. You think about what Tommy said. Don't think. Just do. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. The afternoon is worse than the morning. The heat builds and builds until the air feels solid, like you're breathing soup. Sweat pours down your face, stings your eyes, drips off your chin onto the concrete floor. Your throat is raw from breathing in metal dust and coal smoke. Every breath tastes like iron. Your arms are getting tired. The rods feel heavier than they did this morning. Your movements are slower, sloppier. Twice you almost drop a rod. Twice you catch yourself and force your hands to grip tighter. Don't think. Just do. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. Somewhere across the factory floor, someone screams. You look up. Can't help it. Everyone looks up. A man is on the ground near one of the big presses, the ones that shape the metal with tons of force. He's holding his arm, or what's left of it. Blood is pooling beneath him, spreading across the concrete in a dark red puddle that looks almost black in the furnace light. People are gathering around, shouting, but the machines keep running. Nobody stops the machines. A foreman pushes through the crowd, looks at the man, looks at the blood. His face doesn't change. No shock, no horror, just calculation. Get him out of here, the foreman says. Someone grab his station and clean this up before it gets slippery. We're behind schedule. 2 workers drag the injured man toward the door. He's still screaming, a high, thin sound that cuts through even the noise of the machinery. You catch a glimpse of his arm as they pass. The hand is gone, just gone. Torn off at the wrist, ragged edges of meat and bone where fingers used to be. He has a wedding ring. You notice that. On the hand that's still there. He has a wife somewhere. Maybe kids. The foreman sees you watching. What are you looking at? Get back to work. We don't pay you to stand around. You get back to work. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. The machines don't stop. The furnaces keep burning. The factory keeps eating. Somewhere they're mopping up that man's blood, and in an hour you won't even be able to tell anything happened. Just another stain on the concrete. Just another body used up and thrown away. Your hands are shaking now. Every time you feed a rod into the machine, you think about that man's hand. You think about Tommy's missing finger. You think about all the stumps and scars and empty spaces where pieces of people used to be. The machine in front of you doesn't care. It just waits for the next rod, patient as death, hungry as poverty. Feed the rod. Wait. Stack the nail. Repeat. You try not to think. You really try. But the image of that man's arm keeps flashing in your head. The blood, the bone, the wedding ring. Don't think, just do. Feed the rod, wait, stack the nail, repeat. 6 o'clock comes eventually. The whistle blows, the machines slowly wind down, and for the first time in 12 hours there's something like silence. Your ears are still ringing, probably will be for hours, but at least the screaming has stopped. You walk out of the factory on legs that feel like they belong to someone else. The evening air hits you like a blessing. It's cold and it smells like garbage and horse manure, but compared to the air inside, it's paradise. Workers stream out around you, heading home. Nobody talks about the man who lost his hand. Nobody talks about anything. They just walk, same as this morning, silent and hollow. Tommy catches up to you. You did good, he says. Most new guys throw up their first day, or quit. You didn't do either. You're not sure if that's something to be proud of. See you tomorrow, Tommy says, and he disappears into the crowd. Tomorrow. Right. You get to do this again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, for $1.20. The walk home feels longer than this morning. Your feet hurt. Everything hurts. The city slides past you in a blur of noise and smell and fading light. When you get back to Orchard Street, Mary takes one look at you and doesn't say anything. She just hands you a bowl of soup and points to the floor by the stove. Sit, she says. Eat. You sit. You eat. The soup is thin and watery, but it's the best thing you've ever tasted. How was it? Mary asks. You think about the heat, the noise, the boy with the missing finger, the man with the missing hand, the blood spreading across the concrete floor. Fine, you say. It was fine. She nods. She knows you're lying, but she also knows there's no point in talking about it. This is the job. This is the life. Talking won't change anything. The children are already asleep, curled up together like puppies. The old man is in his corner, staring at nothing. The candle flickers. Get some sleep, Mary says. Tomorrow comes early. You stretch out on the floor. The wood is hard, but tonight you barely notice. Your body's so tired it doesn't care where it lies. Every muscle is screaming. Every joint is complaining. You feel like you've been beaten with sticks, but you made it. 1 day. $1.20. Only about 10,000 more days to go. You close your eyes. The ringing in your ears is still there. It'll be there all night probably. A souvenir from the factory. A little piece of hell you get to take home with you. Not like your quiet room right now, huh? No ringing, no aching bones, no memories of blood on concrete. Just soft pillows and warm blankets, and the peaceful sound of nothing at all. Seamus doesn't have that. Seamus has a wooden floor and a thin blanket and the ghost of machines still screaming in his head. But he sleeps anyway, because tomorrow he has to do it all again, and the day after, and the day after that. This is the Gilded Age. This is progress. This is the price of all those railroads and buildings and factories that are making America rich. Somebody has to pay it. Tonight, lying on the floor of a tenement in Lower Manhattan, Seamus Callahan is starting to understand exactly who that somebody is. The candle goes out, the darkness settles in, and somewhere across the city the furnaces are still burning. The machines are being oiled and prepared for tomorrow. The factory never really sleeps. It just waits, hungry, patient, ready to do it all again. 3 weeks pass, then 4, then 5. Your body adapts, not completely, never completely, but enough. The aches become familiar. The ringing in your ears becomes background noise. The rhythm of the machine becomes as natural as breathing. Feed the rod, wait, stack the nail, repeat. You stop thinking about it. just like Tommy said, on Saturdays they pay you. A man comes around with a tin box full of cash and counts out your wages right there on the factory floor. $1.20 a day, 6 days a week. $7.20, minus deductions. The deductions are where they get you. 50 cents for using the company privy. 20 cents for the rags to wipe your hands. 15 cents for drinking water, which comes from a barrel that nobody ever cleans. 10 cents for lamp oil, even though you work during the day and never use the lamps. Another 10 cents for something called equipment maintenance, which as far as you can tell means nothing at all. By the time they're done deducting, you're left with about $5, maybe $5.50 on a good week. Still, it's money, real money. More money than you've ever held in your life. You give Mary $2 for rent and food. You keep $2 for yourself. The rest goes into a tin can that Mary hides under a loose floorboard. For your mother, she says, for when you bring her over. The first time you put money in that can, you feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Pride. You're doing it. You're actually doing it. $1 at a time, 1 week at a time, you're building something. It doesn't feel like much, but it's yours. Saturday nights, after work, some of the men go to a place called O'Malley's. It's a saloon on Mulberry Street, squeezed between a butcher shop and a building that might be a brothel, but nobody talks about it directly. The sign outside is faded, the windows are grimy, and the smell of spilled beer hits you from half a block away. It's perfect. Tommy takes you there your first time. You're not sure a 12-year-old should be in a saloon, but nobody seems to care. Half the customers look like they've been drinking since before Tommy was born. One more kid isn't going to change anything. Besides, Tommy explains, his mother knows. She doesn't like it, but she knows. It's safer than him wandering the streets alone at night, and at least here there are people watching out for him. The inside is dark and loud and packed with men speaking Irish and English, and sometimes both at once. A fiddler in the corner is playing something fast and sad at the same time, something that reminds you of home so hard it almost hurts. Men are singing along, or trying to. Most of them are too drunk to remember the words, but they remember the feeling. The feeling is what matters. This is where we come, Tommy says, after work. To remember we're human. To remember we're not just machine parts. The walls are covered with pictures. Old newspaper clippings about boxing matches and political victories. A painting of Ireland that looks nothing like the Ireland you remember. All green hills and thatched cottages, like something from a fairy tale. A poster advertising a boxing match from 3 years ago, the paper yellowed and curling at the edges. Someone has nailed a horseshoe above the bar for luck, though you're not sure how much luck anyone in here has actually had. A crucifix hangs near the door, blackened by years of tobacco smoke, watching over everyone who comes and goes. You find a spot at the bar. The bartender is a massive man with arms like tree trunks and a face that's been rearranged by fists more than once. He's missing part of his left ear. Factory accident, someone will tell you later, or a bar fight. The stories change depending on who's telling them. He looks at you, looks at Tommy. New one? He asks. Callahan, Tommy says. Nail factory. Good worker. Doesn't complain. The bartender nods, like this is important information. He pours you a beer without asking if you want one. First one's free, he says. After that, you pay like everyone else. And if you start any trouble, I finish it. Understood? You nod. You understand. The beer is warm and flat and tastes like something died in it. It's the best thing you've ever had. You sit there, drinking, listening. The men around you are talking about work, about foremen who treat them like animals, about accidents that happened last week, last month, last year, about wages that keep getting cut while prices keep going up, about wives and children and the old country and everything they left behind to come to a place that doesn't want them. There's a man in the corner who lost both hands to a press machine. He drinks by having someone else hold the glass to his lips. There's another man with burns covering half his face, the skin shiny and tight. He doesn't talk much, just drinks and listens and stares at nothing. This is what the factory does. This is what it takes from people, and still they come back every day, because there's no other choice. It's like being home, not Ireland home, but home in a different way, a home made of shared misery, of people who understand what your life is like because they're living the same one, of stories and songs and beer that taste like death but feels like communion. You hear a name come up over and over. Tammany. What's Tammany? You ask Tommy. He grins. Oh, you'll meet them soon enough. A week later, you do. His name is Mr. Flannery. Just Mr. Flannery. Nobody uses his first name. He's maybe 40, with a belly that speaks to regular meals and a gold watch chain that speaks to money. He wears a suit, which immediately sets him apart from everyone else in the room. His shoes are polished. His hair is combed. He looks like he belongs in a different world, which in a way he does. He's what they call a ward boss. He works for Tammany Hall, which is the political machine that runs New York, or at least runs the Irish parts of New York, which these days is a lot of it. Tammany Hall isn't a place, exactly. It's more like an organization, a system. They've been around since before the Civil War, building power one immigrant at a time. Every ward in the city has a boss like Mr. Flannery. Every boss answers to someone higher up. And at the very top there are men who decide who becomes mayor, who becomes police chief, who gets the contracts to build the bridges and the buildings and the sewers. It's corruption, pure and simple. But it's also the only system that actually helps people like you. Mr. Flannery holds court in the back of O'Malley's every Sunday afternoon. People come to him with problems, need a job. Mr. Flannery knows someone. He knows everyone. Trouble with the police. Mr. Flannery can make it go away. Got a cousin locked up for something he may or may not have done? Mr. Flannery knows a judge. Landlord threatening to kick you out. Mr. Flannery will have a word, and suddenly the landlord remembers he has other problems to worry about. In exchange, you vote the way he tells you to vote. That's the deal. That's how it works. Simple, clean, effective. You're the Callahan boy, Mr. Flannery says when you're introduced. The one living with Patrick's widow. Yes, sir. He studies you. Takes his time. You feel like you're being weighed, measured, evaluated for usefulness. Patrick was a good man, he says finally. Voted right. Showed up when we needed bodies for rallies. Didn't ask questions. His family's taken care of. You notice he says is, not was. Like the protection extends beyond death. Like being part of Tammany is like being part of a family that never forgets. You don't know what that means exactly, but you nod. Anyway, you registered to vote? No, sir. Just got here a few months ago. Wouldn't even know how to start. Mr. Flannery smiles. The smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. We'll fix that. You're a citizen now, Callahan. Time to act like one. You're not actually a citizen. You've been in the country for less than 3 months. The naturalization process is supposed to take years. But apparently that doesn't matter to Tammany Hall. They have ways of getting people registered, ways that don't involve paperwork or waiting periods or any of the things you thought you'd have to do. They have people in the government offices, people who lose files and find new ones, people who stamp documents without reading them too closely. A week later, You're on the voter rolls. You've never voted for anything in your life, but now you're going to vote for whoever Mr. Flannery tells you to vote for. You'll vote multiple times, probably. Different polling places, different names. Everyone does it. That's how Tammany keeps winning. This is how politics works in 1886, not with speeches and principles and high ideals, with favours and loyalty and a gold watch on a chain, with men like Mr. Flannery who can make your life easier or harder depending on whether you play the game. You play the game. Everyone plays the game. There's no other choice. Meanwhile, at the factory, something is changing. It starts small. Whispers during lunch. Conversations that stop when the foremen walk by. Men gathering in corners, talking low, then breaking apart like nothing happened. You ask Tommy about it. He shrugs. Union talk, he says. Some of the guys want to organise, get better wages, shorter hours, safer machines. Is that allowed? Tommy laughs. It's not allowed. But if the bosses find out you're involved, he draws a finger across his throat. Out on your ear. Blacklisted. Nobody in the city will hire you. You think about that. About how easy it would be to lose everything. The job, the money, the tin can under the floorboard with your mother's future in it. You stay quiet. Keep your head down. Don't get involved. But you listen. The men are talking about something called the American Federation of Labor. It's new, formed just this year by a man named Samuel Gompers. It's trying to organize workers across the country, get them to stand together, demand better conditions, 8-hour days instead of 12, safer machines, wages you can actually live on. Some of the men are excited about it. Finally, they say. Finally, someone's doing something. Others are scared. You think the bosses are just going to let that happen? They'll bring in the Pinkertons. They'll break heads. They'll make examples. In Chicago, things got bad. Real bad. There was a protest in a place called Haymarket Square back in May. Workers were demanding the 8-hour day. A bomb went off. Police died. Workers died. Now men are on trial for murder, facing the rope for something they might not have even done. 8 of them, someone says. Anarchists, the papers call them. But they're just workers like us. Just men who wanted something better. That's what happens, one of the older workers says. He's been in factories for 30 years, and it shows in every line of his face. You stand up, they knock you down. Every time. They've got the police, they've got the judges, they've got the newspapers. We've got nothing. But what if everyone stood up, someone else asks. A younger man, fire in his eyes. What if they couldn't knock us all down? There's more of us than there are of them. Way more. Nobody has an answer for that. The question hangs in the air like smoke. The talk continues. Gets louder some days, quieter others. The foremen are watching more closely now. Everyone can feel it. Something is building. Something is coming. You don't know what. You don't know when. You just know that the factory feels different. Tenser. Like a rope being pulled tighter and tighter, waiting to snap. One Sunday, walking home from O'Malley's, you see something that stops you dead. A carriage is rolling down Fifth Avenue. Not just any carriage. This thing is like a palace on wheels. Gold trim on the doors, velvet curtains in the windows, glass so clean you could eat off it. 4 horses, matched black, each one probably worth more than you'll earn in a year. The driver sits up front, dressed better than anyone you know, and he's just the help. Just the guy who holds the reins. The carriage moves through the street like it owns the place, which you realise it kind of does. People step aside. Vendors pull their carts out of the way. Even the horses on the street seem to know they're in the presence of their betters. Inside, you can just barely see them. A man and a woman, dressed in clothes that would cost more than your entire tenement building. He's wearing a top hat, real silk, the kind you've only seen in pictures. She's wearing something with feathers, huge feathers that must have come from some bird you've never heard of. They're laughing about something, some private joke, and even their laughter sounds expensive. Like it was bought and paid for, packaged up with a ribbon. The woman is holding a little dog on her lap, a little dog wearing a silk ribbon, a dog that probably eats better than Tommy Sullivan, than Mary's children, than half the people in your building. A dog that has never been hungry, never been cold, never wondered where its next meal was coming from. You think about the children in your tenement, the ones with the hollow cheeks and the old eyes, the ones who work in factories 12 hours a day so their families can afford watery soup. And here's a dog, living better than all of them. The carriage passes within 10 feet of you, close enough to touch, close enough to see the rings on the woman's fingers, the diamonds catching the afternoon light and breaking it into 1,000 colours. She has more money on one hand than you'll earn in 5 years, more money than your mother will ever see in her entire life. She doesn't see you, neither does the man. You're invisible to them. You're part of the scenery, like a lamppost or a pile of garbage. You're not even worth noticing. The carriage rolls on, heading uptown toward the mansions and the parties and the world where $6 million gets spent on a single evening, where people have so much money they have to invent new ways to waste it, where dogs wear ribbons and champagne flows like water, and nobody ever worries about deductions or rent or whether the machines will take their fingers. You stand there, watching it go, still wearing your work clothes that smell like metal and sweat. Your hands are still rough from the rods, your ears are still ringing from the machines, you've got maybe $3 in your pocket and you feel rich. Same city, same street, same sky overhead, different universe entirely. That night, lying on the floor of the tenement, you think about that carriage, about the dog with the ribbon, about Mr. Flannery and his gold watch and his power to make problems disappear, about the men whispering about unions and the men who got killed in Chicago for wanting a better life. The Gilded Age, they call it. A thin layer of gold over something rotten. You're starting to understand what that means. Outside, the city is settling into sleep. The noise is fading, the streets emptying. Somewhere a drunk is singing an Irish song, the words slurred but the melody clear. You close your eyes. Not like your cozy bed right now, is it? While you're all warm and comfortable, Seamus is lying on a wooden floor thinking about carriages and unions and a world that seems designed to keep him exactly where he is. Forever. But here's the thing about Seamus, about all the people like him. They didn't stay down forever. They organised, they fought, they voted, they built communities and unions and political machines that changed the country. It took decades. It took blood. It took sacrifice you can't even imagine. But they did it. Seamus doesn't know that yet. All he knows is that tomorrow is Monday, and he has to be at the factory by 6. All he knows is the rhythm of the machine and the weight of the rods, and the face of that woman in the carriage who didn't even see him. But something is stirring. In him. In everyone around him. Something that won't stay quiet forever. The candle flickers out. The darkness settles in. And somewhere in the city, in saloons and tenements and factory floors, people are whispering, waiting, getting ready for whatever comes next. Winter comes to New York like a fist. One day it's cold, the next day it's colder, and then suddenly the temperature drops so far that the water in the barrel outside your building freezes solid and doesn't thaw for 3 weeks. You've never experienced cold like this. Ireland was wet and miserable, sure, grey skies and endless rain that soaked through everything. But this is different. This is a cold that gets into your bones and stays there. A cold that makes your teeth ache and your fingers go numb and your breath turn to ice the second it leaves your mouth. A cold that kills. The tenement becomes a survival exercise. There's one stove for the whole apartment, one small cast iron stove that's supposed to heat 2 rooms and keep 6 people alive. Mary feeds it coal constantly, a few lumps at a time, trying to make their supply last. Coal costs money, 15 cents a bucket, and in February you go through a bucket a day if you want to stay alive. The math is brutal. 15 cents times 30 days is $4.50, just for coal, just to not freeze. That's almost half of what you're putting toward your mother's passage. At night, everyone sleeps near the stove. The children curl up together like puppies sharing body heat. Little Michael, the oldest at 8, wraps himself around his sisters like he's trying to shield them from the cold with his own small body. Mary sleeps next to them, the baby pressed against her chest, skin to skin, because that's the only way to keep an infant warm enough. The old man gets the spot closest to the stove because his bones are old and his blood runs thin. He doesn't talk anymore, hasn't said a real sentence in weeks. Just stares at the flames like he's looking for something in there. Or someone. You sleep farthest away, near the door where the draft comes in through gaps in the frame. You're young, you're strong, you can take it. That's what you tell yourself anyway. Some nights you wake up and your blanket is stiff with frost from your own breath. Some nights you don't really sleep at all, just shiver until morning, watching the darkness and waiting for the grey light that means you can get up and move around, get your blood flowing again. The walk to the factory becomes a battle. The streets are covered in ice and frozen mud and horse manure that's turned to brown concrete. People slip and fall constantly. One morning you see an old woman go down hard, crack her head on the cobblestones, blood on the ice. Nobody stops to help her, can't afford to be late, can't afford to care about strangers when you're barely keeping yourself alive. You step around her and keep walking. Hate yourself a little for it. Keep walking anyway. Inside the factory, the heat is almost welcome now. Almost. The furnaces that made summer unbearable are keeping people alive in January. Workers crowd around them during breaks, holding out their hands, trying to absorb enough warmth to make it through the next few hours. Tommy shows up one morning with blue lips and shaking hands. His coat is too thin. His shoes have holes in them. He's been wearing the same clothes since fall, and fall clothes aren't made for February. You give him your scarf. It's not much, just a piece of wool that Mary knitted from scraps, but it's something. He tries to give it back. Keep it, you say. I'm hot-blooded anyway. It's a lie. You're as cold as anyone. But Tommy's 12 and you're 20, and that has to mean something. 3 days later, a man named O'Brien freezes to death in the building next to yours. They find him in his room, sitting in a chair, eyes open, covered in frost. He'd run out of coal 2 days before and was too proud to ask for help. This is what winter means in the tenements. Not snowball fights and hot cocoa. Death. Slow, cold, quiet death that comes for anyone who can't keep feeding the stove. But then something happens. It's a Tuesday night in late February when you first see them. You're walking home from the factory, head down, shoulders hunched against the wind, thinking about nothing but getting warm. The streets are dark, lit only by the occasional gas lamp that's more shadow than light. Your feet are numb, your face is numb, you're moving on pure habit. And then you turn a corner onto Broadway, and you look up. Lights, electric lights. They've installed them all along the street, a string of bright white lights running down the avenue like stars that fell to earth and decided to stay. They're mounted on tall poles, casting pools of brilliance that overlap and merge into a river of light. They're so bright they hurt your eyes after the darkness of the side streets. So bright they cast shadows in every direction at once. So bright you can see the individual snowflakes drifting down from the sky, each one catching the light and sparkling like a tiny diamond before it lands. You've heard about electric lights. Everyone has. Edison's been putting them up all over the city for years now, starting with that power station on Pearl Street back in 1882. Replacing the gas lamps one block at a time. Rich neighbourhoods first, of course. Always the rich neighbourhoods first. But you've never seen them up close. Never stood underneath one and felt its glow on your face like artificial sunshine. It's like magic. Actual magic. Light without fire. Brightness without smoke or oil, or any of the things that light has always required. The glow is steady, unwavering, not like the flicker of gas or candles. It just is. Pure and constant and impossibly bright. You can read by this light. You could read a book, right here on the street, in the middle of the night. You can see colours you couldn't see by gaslight. A woman's dress across the street is red. Actually red. Not the muddy brown that everything becomes by gas lamp. Red. You stand there for maybe 10 minutes just staring up. Your neck hurts from the angle. Your feet are freezing. People push past you, annoyed, muttering about country fools and immigrants who don't know how to walk. But you don't care. You're watching the future. You're watching the world change right in front of your eyes. A policeman on the corner is watching you, probably wondering if you're drunk or crazy. You don't care about that either. This, you, think. This is what America is supposed to be. Not the tenements and the factory and the cold that kills old men in their chairs. This, light, progress. The promise that tomorrow might actually be better than today. Somewhere, someone figured out how to do this. Someone sat in a room and thought about electricity and wires and glass bulbs until they invented this miracle. That's what humans can do. That's what's possible. You walk home with something you haven't felt in months. Hope. Real hope. Not the desperate kind that's just denial dressed up fancy. The kind that comes from seeing something genuinely new, genuinely good, genuinely possible. If they can make light without fire, you think, maybe they can make a world where people like you don't have to sleep on floors. Maybe they can make machines that don't eat fingers. Maybe they can make factories that don't turn men into ghosts. Maybe. That weekend you do something you've been putting off. You write to your mother. The letter takes forever. Your handwriting is bad. You never had much schooling, and finding the right words is like pulling teeth. But you do it. You sit at Mary's table with a candle and a piece of paper you bought for a penny and you write, "Dear Ma, I'm well. I have a job at a factory. The work is hard but steady. I'm living with Patrick's widow and her children." Patrick passed before I arrived. I'm sorry I didn't write sooner. New York is big. Bigger than anything I could have imagined. There are more people here than in all of County Cork. Maybe more than in all of Ireland. The buildings are tall and the streets are loud and everything moves fast. I'm saving money. Every week I put some aside. It's not much, but it's growing. One day I'll have enough to bring you here. That's a promise. The other day I saw electric lights. Real ones. Ma, you wouldn't believe it. They're bright as day, but they don't need fire. No smoke, no oil, nothing, just light. The future is here and I'm watching it happen. I miss you. I miss home. But I think I made the right choice coming here. I think there's something possible here that wasn't possible there. Write back if you can. Send it to the address on the envelope. Your son, Seamus. You read it over 3 times. It's not enough. It doesn't say half of what you want to say. But it's something. A connection across 3,000 miles of ocean. A thread that ties you to home. Mary helps you address the envelope. She's been doing this longer than you have, knows how to navigate the postal system. The letter will take weeks to arrive, she warns. Weeks more before a reply comes back, if your mother can find someone to write one for her. You mail it anyway. Some things are worth the wait. March comes, and with it, something unexpected. The winter is finally loosening its grip. The ice is cracking, the days are getting longer, and at the factory, something is different. The foreman pulls you aside after your shift. His name is Brennan. He's a hard man, built like a barrel, with hands that look like they were carved from wood. He's not cruel exactly, not like some of the foremen you've heard about, but he's not kind either. He's efficient. He sees workers as numbers, as units of production, as problems to be managed. When he wants to talk to you alone, your first thought is that you're being fired. That's always the first thought. What did I do wrong? What rule did I break? Callahan, he says. You've been here, 4 months now? 5, you say. Almost 6, sir. He nods, pulls out a small notebook from his pocket, flips through pages covered in tiny handwriting. Good worker. No complaints, no trouble. You show up on time. You don't drink at lunch like some of these idiots. You keep your head down and you work. He closes the notebook. We're moving you to the heavy press, starting tomorrow. The heavy press. That's where they make the big nails, the railroad spikes, the massive bolts that hold bridges together. It's harder work, more dangerous. The machines are bigger, the stakes are higher. One mistake on the heavy press and you don't lose a finger. You lose an arm. Maybe your life. But it pays better. 10 cents more a day. You do the math in your head without even thinking about it. 10 cents times 6 days is 60 cents a week. 60 cents times 52 weeks is $31.20 a year. That's your mother's passage almost paid for just in the raise. You don't know what to say, so you just nod. The man who had the job before you, Brennan continues, watching your face. Kovac, he got careless. You won't see him around anymore. You understand what that means. You've heard the stories about Kovac. Hungarian fellow, worked the heavy press for 3 years, knew the machine better than anyone, still got caught. The press doesn't care how much experience you have, it just waits for you to make a mistake. I'll be careful, you say. See that you are. Brennan puts the notebook back in his pocket. Report to Station 12 tomorrow. 6 o'clock. Don't make me regret it. He walks away without waiting for a response. That's how it works here. That's how everything works. But you're smiling. Can't help it. 10 cents more. A better position. Recognition that you're not just a body, not just a pair of hands, but someone who matters, someone worth investing in, someone who might have a future in this place. You float home that night. Actually float. Your feet barely touch the frozen ground. The cold doesn't bother you. The wind doesn't matter. You've got news. Good news. The kind of news that changes things. Mary actually cries when you tell her. Good tears, happy tears, the kind she probably hasn't cried since Patrick was alive. The children gather around, not understanding what's happening but feeling the energy in the room. Even the old man in the corner seems to stir, his eyes focusing for a moment on something other than the past. This calls for celebration, Mary says. She pulls out a bottle from somewhere, something she's been saving. Whiskey. Real whiskey, not the rotgut they serve at O'Malley's. She pours 2 glasses, hands you one. To Seamus, she says, to the future, you drink. The whiskey burns going down, but it's a good burn, a warm burn. For one night you're not just surviving, you're winning. Later, lying on your spot by the stove, you think about everything that's happened. The ship, Castle Garden, the tenement, the factory, Tommy with his missing finger, the man who lost his hand, the cold that killed O'Brien, the electric lights on Broadway. It's been 6 months since you stepped off that ship. 6 months of the hardest work you've ever done. 6 months of fear and pain and exhaustion. But also 6 months of money in a tin can. 6 months of community at O'Malley's. 6 months of small victories that add up to something bigger. You're still poor. You're still tired. You're still sleeping on a wooden floor in a building that might as well be a vertical coffin. But you're alive. You're working. You're saving. And tomorrow you start on the heavy press. Not bad for a Mick from County Cork. Outside the wind is still blowing, still cold, still trying to find its way through the cracks in the walls. But inside, with the whiskey warm in your belly and the stove glowing red, it doesn't feel quite so hostile. Spring is coming. You can feel it. Not here yet, but coming. The days are getting longer. The ice is starting to crack. Soon the streets will turn back to mud instead of frozen ground, and then to dust, and then it'll be summer again with its own different miseries. But for now, in this moment, things are okay, maybe even good. Not like your cozy situation right now, of course. You've got heat that doesn't require feeding coal every few hours, light you can turn on with a switch, a bed that's actually soft. But Seamus is getting there, slowly, painfully, one day at a time. That's how it worked back then. That's how it still works now, really. Small victories, tiny steps forward. The belief that tomorrow might be slightly better than today, and the willingness to work for it. The candle burns low. Mary blows it out. Darkness. But not the hopeless darkness of those first nights. A different darkness now. A darkness that feels more like rest than oblivion. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, the heavy press. Tomorrow, a new challenge. Tomorrow, another step towards something better. But tonight, just for tonight, you've already won. Sleep comes easy for once. And somewhere across the city those electric lights are still burning, still promising a future that's brighter than the past. Seamus Callahan doesn't know it yet, but he's part of something bigger than himself, part of a story that's still being written, part of a nation that's changing every single day, for better and worse, in ways nobody can predict. He's just one man. One immigrant, one worker among millions, but his story matters. They all do, and he's not done yet, not even close. Spring arrives like a rumour at first, a day here and there where the wind doesn't cut through your coat, a patch of blue sky between the clouds, the sound of water dripping as the ice finally starts to melt. Then all at once, it's real. The streets turn to mud. Thick, brown, ankle-deep mud that gets into everything. It's disgusting. It smells worse than winter somehow, because all the garbage and horse manure that froze over is now thawing and mixing together into a soup that squishes under your boots. but the sun is warm on your face, and after 5 months of cold that tried to kill you, a little mud feels like a fair trade. Work on the heavy press is harder than the nail line. The machine is bigger, louder, angrier. It takes rods as thick as your thumb and hammers them into spikes that could punch through steel. The rhythm is slower but heavier. Each cycle feels like a heartbeat, like the factory itself is alive and breathing. You're careful, so careful. Every time you feed a rod into the press, you think about Kovac, about the space where his arm used to be, about how fast everything can go wrong. But you're getting good at it. Your hands know the rhythm now. Your body moves without thinking, leaving your mind free to wander, to plan, to dream. The tin can under the floorboard is getting heavier. $23 now. $23.40 to be exact. You count it every Sunday, spreading the coins and bills out on Mary's table, touching each one like a prayer. $7 more and you can send for your mother. Maybe 8 to be safe. A few more months. By summer maybe. By fall for certain. The thought keeps you going through the 12-hour shifts, through the aching muscles and the ringing ears and the exhaustion that seeps into your bones. Every rod you feed into that machine is another step toward bringing her here. In mid-March, something happens that you didn't expect. Tommy finds you at lunch, grinning so wide it looks painful. It's Saturday, he says. You know what Saturday is? Payday. He rolls his eyes. Besides that, Saturday is March 17th. It takes you a second. Then it hits you. St. Patrick's Day. In Ireland, St. Patrick's Day was a holy day. You went to Mass, maybe had a small celebration at home, and that was it. Nothing fancy, nothing big. In New York, apparently, it's a completely different animal. The parade, Tommy says. The parade is Saturday. Everyone goes. Everyone. You've heard about the St. Patrick's Day parade. It's been going on for decades, longer than you've been alive. Thousands of Irish marching through the streets of New York, showing the city that they exist, that they matter, that they're not going anywhere. You've never seen it, never even considered going. Saturdays are for work, but Tommy's already ahead of you. Flannery arranged it, he says. Half the factory's taking the day. The bosses don't like it, but they can't exactly fire all of us. You think about that, about hundreds of workers just not showing up, about the power that represents, about what it means that Mr. Flannery can make something like that happen. So Saturday morning, instead of walking to the factory, you walk to Fifth Avenue. The crowd is like nothing you've ever seen. Thousands of people, tens of thousands, maybe more. They're packed along the sidewalks 10 deep, spilling into the street, climbing lampposts and fire escapes and perching on window ledges to get a better view. Irish flags everywhere, the green and gold catching the March sunlight, green ribbons pinned to lapels, green hats, green scarves, green everything. Women wearing their best dresses, men in suits they probably can't afford, children sitting on their father's shoulders, waving little flags and shouting, and the noise. God, the noise. Bands playing, different songs overlapping and clashing and somehow making sense together. People singing old songs from the old country, songs you recognize from your mother's kitchen, songs you didn't know you remembered until you heard them again. Children screaming with excitement, vendors shouting, selling green ribbons and paper flags and meat pies and beer. It's like O'Malley's multiplied by 1,000 and then set loose in the streets. It's like all of Ireland got picked up and dropped into Manhattan for a day. You find a spot near 42nd Street, wedged between a family from Donegal and a group of young men who look like dock workers, all of them bigger than you and twice as loud. You wait. The parade starts like a river. Slow at first, barely a trickle, then building into a flood. Men in suits marching in formation, the ancient order of Hibernians with their banners and their medals. Fire brigades with their gleaming red wagons, the horses decorated with green plumes. Police officers, Irish cops who made it onto the force through Tammany connections, walking proud in their blue uniforms, proof that an Irishman can wear a badge in this city. Then the workers, thousands of them, dock workers with their hook-scarred hands, factory workers with their bent backs and missing fingers, construction workers burned brown by the sun, rail workers, canal diggers, men who spend their lives building this city, now marching through it like they own it. Because today, maybe they do. You see men from your factory in the crowd, men you work beside every day, their faces transformed by something like joy, like pride, like belonging to something bigger than a tenement or a machine. They're not workers today. They're Irish. They're Americans. They're free. They chant. They sing. They wave flags and banners with union slogans, words about 8-hour days and fair wages and dignity for workers. The Knights of Labour banner passes by, then the AFL, then groups you don't recognise but understand anyway. Nobody stops them. Nobody arrests them. The cops on the corners are Irish too, cheering along with everyone else. For one day at least, the workers are allowed to dream out loud, to demand out loud, to exist out loud. You watch for hours. Your feet hurt. Your stomach is empty. You don't care. This is what community looks like. This is what power looks like when ordinary people stick together. This is what your cousin Patrick was part of, what Mr. Flannery is part of, what you're becoming part of whether you meant to or not. By late afternoon, the parade is winding down. The crowds are dispersing, heading to saloons and dance halls to continue the celebration. Tommy disappeared hours ago, swept away by some friends from his block. You're about to head home when someone bumps into you. Sorry, a voice says. A woman's voice. You turn. She's about your age, maybe a year or two younger. Red hair pinned up under a green ribbon, freckles across her nose, eyes that are somewhere between blue and green, like the sea on a cloudy day. She's beautiful. Not in the untouchable way of the woman in the carriage with the little dog. Beautiful in a real way, in a way that makes your chest tight. My fault, you managed to say. Wasn't watching where I was standing. She smiles. You're from the old country. I can hear it. Cork, you say. Galway, she says. Came over 3 years ago with my parents. You? 6 months. Give or take. She nods like this makes sense, like she remembers what 6 months felt like. I'm Bridget, she says. Bridget O'Connor, Seamus Callahan. She sticks out her hand, which surprises you. Women don't usually shake hands, but Bridget O'Connor apparently does what she wants. Her grip is firm, her hand is rough, calloused. Working hands, like yours. You work? You ask. She raises an eyebrow. What? Women can't work? No, I just meant... She laughs. Relax, Callahan. I'm teasing. I work at a garment factory on Hester Street, sewing shirts, 12 hours a day, same as you probably. Same as everyone, you say. Same as everyone, she agrees, but not today. Today's for being Irish. She glances at the dispersing crowd. Some of us are going to a dance hall on Bowery, she says. Murphy's place. You know it? You don't. You shake your head. You should come. It's St. Patrick's Day. You shouldn't spend it alone. You think about the tenement, about Mary and the children and the floor you'll sleep on tonight, about the money you're saving and the mother you're trying to bring over and all the responsible, practical, sensible things you should be doing. Okay, you say. I'll come. Bridget smiles. That smile does something to your chest, something you don't have a word for. Murphy's, she says, Bowery and Grand, 8 o'clock, don't be late. And then she's gone, swallowed by the crowd, leaving you standing on Fifth Avenue with your heart beating faster than it has any right to. You go to the dance. Murphy's is a basement hall with a low ceiling and sawdust on the floor and a band in the corner playing jigs and reels that make your feet want to move even if you don't know how to dance. You don't know how to dance. Not really. But neither does anyone else, it turns out. They just move. They stomp and spin and grab partners and let the music carry them wherever it wants to go. Bridget finds you near the door, too nervous to go in properly. You came, she says, said I would. She grabs your hand. No more standing around. Come on. The next few hours are a blur. The music is loud and fast and somehow also sad, like all Irish music. The beer is cheap and plentiful. People are laughing, singing, shouting stories at each other over the noise. You dance with Bridget, or something like dancing. She leads mostly because you have no idea what you're doing. She doesn't seem to mind. She laughs when you step on her feet, which is often. Tell me about Cork, she says during a slower song. What do you want to know? Everything. What it looked like. What it smelled like. What you miss. So you tell her about the green hills and the grey skies and the smell of peat smoke, about your mother's cottage and the neighbours you grew up with, and the church where you were baptised, about leaving, about the ship, about arriving in a city that didn't want you but needed you anyway. She listens, really listens, not just waiting for her turn to talk, but actually hearing you. When you finish, she's quiet for a moment. I miss Galway, she says finally, every day, but I wouldn't go back. There's nothing there anymore. No work, no future. At least here. She shrugs. At least here there's a chance. You think about that. About chances. About futures. Do you ever wonder, you start to ask? But the music picks up again and the moment passes. Later, walking home through streets that are still echoing with celebration, you think about Bridget O'Connor from Galway, about her red hair and her working hands and the way she said your name. You're not thinking about the factory. You're not thinking about your mother's passage money or the heavy press or the tin can under the floorboard. You're thinking about the possibility that there might be more to life than just surviving. That maybe, somewhere in this loud and dirty and dangerous city, there's room for something like happiness. It's a dangerous thought. Happiness is expensive. Happiness requires things you can't afford, but you think it anyway. The next morning, Sunday, you walk to the Brooklyn Bridge. You've been meaning to see it for months. Everyone talks about it. The eighth wonder of the world, they call it. The greatest engineering feat of the age. A bridge that took 14 years to build and killed at least 20 men in the process. It opened 3 years ago, in 1883. The day it opened, thousands of people walked across it, and one woman got crushed in a stampede when someone shouted that the bridge was collapsing. It wasn't. It was just fear. Just people being afraid of something new. You pay the penny toll and start walking. The bridge stretches ahead of you like a road into the sky. Stone towers rising up on either side, massive and solid, strung with cables as thick as your arm. Below you, the East River churns grey and cold, dotted with boats and ferries. You walk to the middle and stop. Look back at Manhattan. Look forward at Brooklyn. From up here, the city looks different. Smaller somehow, but also grander. You can see the tenements of the Lower East Side, the smokestacks of the factories, the spires of churches. You can see the new buildings going up, 5 stories, 6 stories, reaching higher every year. This bridge was impossible once. Everyone said so. Too long, too heavy, too ambitious. The man who designed it died before it was finished. His son took over, got sick from working underwater, spent years in bed directing construction from his window. But they built it anyway. Stone by stone, cable by cable. They built the impossible and made it real. You think about that. About impossible things. About what people can do when they refuse to give up. Below you, the river keeps flowing. Above you, the cables hum in the wind. Around you, other people are walking, looking, pointing at the view. For a moment, just a moment, you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. Part of a city that's building itself toward the sky. Part of a story that's still being written. Not bad for a Mick from County Cork. Not bad at all. You stand there until the sun starts to set, painting the sky orange and red. Then you walk home, tired and happy, and already thinking about next Saturday. About Murphy's dance hall. About Bridget O'Connor and her sea-coloured eyes. Tomorrow is Monday. Tomorrow is the factory, the heavy press, the endless rhythm of work. But tonight, you've got something else. Something that feels almost like a future. Not like your comfortable bed, is it? While you're all warm and relaxed, Seamus is walking home from the Brooklyn Bridge with hope in his chest and a girl's name on his mind. But here's the thing. That hope was real. That bridge was real. That parade was real. In the middle of all the hardship and danger and inequality of the Gilded Age, people still fell in love, still danced, still celebrated who they were and where they came from. They worked 12 hours a day and then found energy somehow to live the rest of their lives, to build communities, to raise families, to be human. That's the part that doesn't make it into the history books. The joy, the small moments that make everything else bearable. Seamus is learning that now. He's learning that survival isn't enough. You need something to survive for. And maybe, just maybe, he's starting to find it. The stars are coming out over Manhattan. Gas lamps flicker to life along the streets. Somewhere, a fiddle is playing. Seamus Callahan walks home with a spring in his step that wasn't there this morning. Tomorrow, the machines. But tonight, the music. Tonight, the bridge. Tonight, Bridget. You see Bridget every Sunday after that. It becomes a ritual. Church in the morning, because her mother insists and you're not going to argue with an Irish mother. Then a walk. Through the streets, along the river, wherever your feet take you. She talks about her job at the garment factory. Sewing shirts, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Her fingers are calloused in different ways than yours, pricked by needles instead of roughened by rods. She shows you the scars, tiny dots across her fingertips like constellations. Every shirt I make, she says, some rich man wears it to dinner parties. He's never going to think about me, never going to know I exist. But I know he exists. I can picture his face while I'm sewing his collar. Does that bother you? She shrugs. It used to. Now I just think about how ridiculous his collar is. All those ruffles. Who needs that many ruffles? You laugh. She makes you laugh, which is strange because you didn't think of yourself as someone who laughs. But around Bridget, you do. She has a way of finding the absurd in everything, of pointing at the world and saying, look at this mess. Isn't it funny? Her family lives in a tenement on Hester Street, not far from the garment factory. Their building is a little better than yours. A little. The stairs don't creak as much and there's actually a window in the hallway that lets in light. Small victories. Her father works on the docks when there's work to be had. Which isn't always, which isn't even often. Her mother takes in laundry from uptown families, scrubbing their fancy shirts and dresses until her hands crack and bleed. Her two younger brothers, Sean and Patrick, sell newspapers on street corners and shine shoes outside the hotels, bringing in pennies that add up to survival. They're suspicious of you at first. Bridget's father looks at you like you're something the tide washed in, some half-drowned creature that doesn't know enough to stay away from his daughter. So, he says the first time you come to dinner, you work in a factory. Yes, sir, nail factory, on the heavy press. Heavy press. He nods slowly, like he's weighing this information. You got all your fingers. You hold up your hands. So far. He almost smiles at that. Almost. Her mother is worse. She asks questions that feel more like interrogations. Where are you from? What parish? Who are your people? What did your father do? What do you make at that factory? How much do you save? What are your intentions toward my daughter? Ma, Bridget groans. He just got here. I have a right to know, her mother says. A mother always has a right to know. You answer every question. Honestly, completely. Feeling like you're on trial for a crime you haven't committed yet. Mrs. O'Connor listens with narrowed eyes, weighing each response, looking for lies or weakness. By the time dinner is over, you're exhausted. You've been interrogated by officials at Castle Garden who were less thorough than this woman, but you pass whatever test they're giving. By the third Sunday dinner at their table, Mr. O'Connor is pouring you whiskey and telling stories about Galway, about the fishing boats and the storms and the girl he fell in love with 40 years ago. By the fifth, Mrs. O'Connor is asking when you're going to make an honest woman of her daughter. Ma, Bridget says, mortified, her cheeks turning red. We've known each other 2 months. I knew your father 2 weeks before we were engaged, Mrs. O'Connor says, completely unfazed. 2 weeks. And look at us now. Mr. O'Connor raises his glass. 30 years of her telling me what to do. Best years of my life. Mrs. O'Connor swats his arm, but she's smiling. The whole table laughs. Even you, especially you. Summer comes back around. A year ago you were on a ship, seasick, scared, not knowing what waited for you on the other side of the ocean. Now you're walking these streets like you own them. Not really, of course. You still get lost sometimes. You still feel like a foreigner in ways you can't explain. But the city doesn't terrify you anymore. It's just home. Loud, dirty, crowded home. The heat returns, and with it, all the smells you forgot about during winter. The garbage ripening in the gutters, the horses and their endless contributions to the streets, the tenements baking in the sun, the air inside so thick you could cut it with a knife. The factory is brutal again. The furnaces that saved you in February are trying to kill you in July. Men pass out at their stations. They drag them outside, splash water on their faces, send them back to work. Tommy's grown an inch since you met him. He's 13 now, though he lies and says 14 to anyone who asks. He's got a girl, he tells you, a girl named Anna who works at the match factory on the east side. Her fingers glow in the dark, Tommy says, from the phosphorus. She showed me. That doesn't sound healthy, you say. Tommy shrugs. Nothing's healthy. At least she's pretty. He's got a point. In August, something happens that you've been dreaming about for almost a year. You count the money in the tin can. You've been counting it every week, watching it grow penny by penny, dollar by dollar. But this time, when you're done counting, you count again. And then again, just to be sure. $32.15. You stare at the pile of coins and crumpled bills spread out on Mary's table. The candlelight catches the edges of the silver, makes it glow. That's enough, Mary says quietly. She's been watching you count. That's enough for passage. For your mother. You don't say anything. Can't say anything. Your throat is tight and your eyes are burning, and if you open your mouth you might start crying, which would be embarrassing and also unstoppable. Mary puts a hand on your shoulder. Patrick would be proud of you, she says. You know that, right? He'd be proud. You nod. Swallow hard. Blink until the burning goes away. The next morning you go to a shipping company on South Street. A man behind a desk looks at you like you're wasting his time until you pull out the money. Then he looks at you differently. One passage, you say. Queenstown to New York. The name is Callahan. Margaret Callahan. He writes it down, takes your money, hands you a receipt. The next ship leaves in 3 weeks, he says. She'll need to get to Queenstown by then, and she'll need this. He hands you a ticket. Guard it with your life. You walk out of that office holding the ticket like it's made of gold. Because it is, really. It's months of work and sweat and sacrifice turned into a piece of paper that's going to bring your mother across an ocean. You write to her that night. The longest letter you've ever written. Explaining the ticket. Explaining how to get to Queenstown. Explaining what to expect when she arrives. You tell her about Castle Garden, about the questions they'll ask, about how to find you afterward. You tell her about the city, about the noise and the smells and the way the buildings block out the sky, about the factory and the heavy press and the men you work with, about Mary and her children and the floor you sleep on. You tell her about Bridget. There's a girl, you write. Her name is Bridget O'Connor. She's from Galway. She makes me laugh. I think you'd like her. You think about crossing that last part out. It feels like too much, too soon, too something. You leave it in. The weeks between sending the letter and waiting for the ship are the longest of your life. You can't stop thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if your mother can't get to Queenstown in time? What if she gets sick on the voyage? What if something happens and she doesn't arrive and you've spent all that money for nothing? You work, you eat, you sleep. You see Bridget on Sundays and try not to be a nervous wreck. She knows what you're going through. She remembers her own crossing, the fear of it, the way the ocean seemed endless. She'll make it, Bridget says. The O'Connors are tough. The Callahans are probably tougher. How do you know? Because you made it, and you came alone. She'll have the ocean at her back and you waiting at the end. That's more than most people get. You hold on to that. In early September, a year and 1 week after you arrived in New York, you go back to Castle Garden. The place looks different now. Smaller somehow. Less terrifying. When you came through here a year ago, it felt like the entrance to another world. Now it just looks like a building full of tired people. But for the passengers on today's ship, it's still everything. It's still the door to a new life. The ship is called the Bothnia. You watch it come in from the battery, massive and slow, crawling across the harbour like a tired whale. Smoke pouring from its stacks, seagulls circling overhead, screaming, the Statue of Liberty. In the distance, still that dull copper colour, still holding her torch, still promising things she can't guarantee. You watch the passengers start to disembark, hundreds of them, thousands, pouring down the gangway in a river of hope and fear and exhaustion. They look like you looked a year ago, pale and thin and scared and determined, clutching bags and children and whatever small pieces of home they managed to bring. You wait by the processing area. You're not supposed to be here, technically, but Tommy told you about a guard who can be bribed, and $1 got you through the gate. You scan the faces, old women, young men, families with crying babies, a priest in his black cassock, 2 children holding hands, alone. nobody meeting them. You look for grey hair and a green shawl and the face that sang you to sleep when you were small. The minutes stretch. The crowd keeps coming. Your heart is pounding so hard you can feel it in your throat. What if she didn't make it? What if she got sick? What if something happened on the crossing? And then you see her. She's in the middle of a crowd of women moving slowly, leaning on a cane you don't remember her having. She looks older than you remember, smaller somehow, frailer. The crossing was hard on her, you can tell. She's thin and pale and her clothes hang loose on a frame that used to be stronger. But her eyes are the same, scanning the crowd, looking, searching. And then they find you. The same eyes. Your eyes. The eyes that watched you take your first steps, that cried when you left, that you've been dreaming about for a year. She doesn't run. Neither do you. You walk toward each other through the chaos, through the pushing bodies and crying children and overwhelmed officials. The crowd seems to part around you, or maybe you just don't notice it anymore. You meet in the middle. Ma, you say. Your voice cracks on the word. She reaches up and touches your face. Her hand is cold, thin. You can feel the bones beneath the skin, but her touch is the same, gentle, wondering. My boy, she says, look at you. You're so tall now. You're a man. You want to say something important, something that captures everything you've felt for the past year, everything you've been through, everything you've been saving for, all those rods fed into machines, all those nights on the floor, all those dollars in the tin can. But all you can do is hold her. She holds you back, tight, like she's afraid you might disappear, like she's making sure you're real. Around you, the crowd keeps moving. The city keeps churning. The machines keep running and the ships keep coming and the whole brutal, beautiful mess of America keeps grinding forward. But for this one moment, none of it matters. You're just a boy holding his mother, a son and a mother, together again after an ocean and a year, a family made whole again. The walk back to Orchard Street is slow. Your mother leans on your arm, tired from the voyage, overwhelmed by the noise and the smell and the sheer size of everything. You point things out as you walk. That's a streetcar, Ma. Those are electric lights. That's the Brooklyn Bridge, see? Over there. She nods but doesn't really see. She's too tired, too in shock. Give her time, a week, maybe 2. She'll adjust. Everyone does, eventually. Mary cries when you bring your mother through the door. The children crowd around, curious about this strange old woman who speaks with the same accent as Seamus, but also different, thicker, more like home. Mrs. Callahan, Mary says, wiping her eyes. You're welcome here, as long as you need. Your mother looks around the apartment. The bare floors, the peeling wallpaper, the cramped space where 6 people, now 7, will somehow fit. This is where you've been living? She asks quietly. Yes, Ma. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she nods. Well, she says, we'll make it work. We always do. That night, you give her your spot by the stove. You sleep by the door, feeling the draft come through the cracks. You don't care. You don't care about anything except that she's here. She's real. She made it. Outside, the city is still roaring. Never quiet, never still. But inside this tiny apartment, there's something that wasn't there before. Family. Real family. Not like your cozy room right now, is it? While you're all comfortable and warm, Seamus is lying on the floor near a drafty door, happier than he's ever been in his life. Because that's the thing about happiness. It doesn't need comfort. It doesn't need space or money or any of the things we think it needs. Sometimes happiness is just a mother's hand on your face after a year apart. Sometimes it's watching her sleep near a stove in a tenement in a city she's never seen. Sometimes it's knowing that all the work meant something, that the sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Seamus has his mother back. He has a girl who makes him laugh. He has a job that's slowly, painfully paying him enough to survive. He's still poor, still tired, still sleeping on a floor in a building that should probably be condemned. But he's not alone anymore, and that makes all the difference. The candle burns low. Mary blows it out. Darkness settles over the apartment, over the tenement, over the whole Lower East Side. But somewhere in that darkness, Seamus Callahan is smiling. Tomorrow, the factory. Tomorrow, the machines. Tomorrow, another day of feeding rods and watching his back and trying to keep all his fingers. But tonight, his mother is sleeping 3 feet away. Tonight, everything is exactly as it should be. Almost as it should be. Because the Gilded Age isn't done with Seamus Callahan yet, and even on the best nights, even in the happiest moments, there's always something waiting. Something he can't see coming. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight, he sleeps, and he dreams of green fields and grey skies and a cottage in County Cork where a woman used to sit by the fire and wonder if her son was okay. He's okay, Ma. He's okay. The weeks after your mother arrives are hard in ways you didn't expect. She doesn't complain. That's not her way. Never has been. Back in Cork, she buried your father and went right back to work the next day. She's not built for self-pity. But you can see it in her eyes when she looks around the tenement. The shock that hasn't quite faded. The grief for something she can't name. Maybe for the island she left behind. Maybe for the America she imagined. This isn't what she pictured. When she was saving those pennies back in Cork, counting them by candlelight, dreaming of the country where her son had gone, she pictured something else, something cleaner, something with windows that let in light and floors that didn't creak, and walls that kept out the cold. She pictured her son in a proper bed, not on a wooden floor by a drafty door. She doesn't say any of this, but you know. You can read her face like a book. You always could. She spends the first week mostly sleeping, recovering. The voyage took more out of her than she'll admit. She's 63 years old, and she crossed an ocean in steerage, sleeping in a bunk barely wider than her shoulders, surrounded by strangers, eating food that would make a dog sick. 12 days of that would exhaust anyone. At her age, it nearly killed her. "Give her time," Mary says one morning, seeing the worry on your face. "It took me months to stop jumping at every noise. The city's loud. She'll get used to it. We all do. You're not sure. You're not sure she should have to get used to it. But what choice is there? What choice has there ever been?" Slowly, though, she starts to find her footing. That's the thing about your mother. She's small and old, and she looks like a strong wind could knock her over. But inside, she's made of iron. She's survived famine and poverty and a husband dying young, and a son leaving for another continent. She can survive New York. She takes over the cooking from Mary. Not because Mary asks, but because that's what your mother does. She feeds people. It's her language, her way of saying I love you without having to say the words. The watery potato soup becomes something thicker, richer, flavoured with herbs she finds at the street markets and stretches further than you thought possible. She works miracles with scraps, the way she always has. She mends clothes, everyone's clothes. Her fingers are still nimble despite her age, and she can patch a shirt so you'd never know it was torn. The children bring her their worn-out shoes, and she works miracles with scraps of leather and determination. She learns the neighbourhood, where to buy bread that isn't stale, which vendor gives honest weight, which streets to avoid after dark. She makes friends with the Italian woman downstairs and the Jewish family across the hall, communicating in a language that's mostly gestures and smiles. She goes to Mass every morning. St. Patrick's on Mulberry Street, walking there before dawn and back again before you leave for work. She lights candles for your father, for Patrick, for everyone she left behind and everyone she's found. One Sunday in October, you bring Bridget to meet her. You've been nervous about this for weeks. Your mother has opinions, strong opinions, and she's not shy about sharing them. But Bridget walks into that apartment like she owns it, shakes your mother's hand, looks her in the eye and says, "Mrs. Callahan, your son talks about you constantly. I feel like I already know you." Your mother studies her. That same weighing look she used to give the merchants in Cork when she thought they were cheating her. "Galway," she says finally. "I can hear it." "Yes, ma'am. Good people in Galway. Hard people." Your mother nods slowly. "Sit down, girl. Tell me about your family." Bridget sits. She talks. Your mother listens, asks questions, nods at the answers. You stand in the corner feeling useless, watching two women who could probably run the world if anyone gave them the chance. By the time Bridget leaves, your mother is smiling. "I like her," she says after the door closes. "She's got spine." "I know. Don't let her get away, Seamus. Girls like that don't wait around forever." "I know, Ma." She pats your cheek. "Good boy." November comes, then December. The days get shorter, and the cold starts creeping back. But this year is different. This year, the apartment has your mother in it, stirring soup and mending shirts and humming old songs from home. This year, there's someone waiting when you come home from the factory, someone who looks up and smiles and asks about your day. This year, you're not alone. On Christmas Eve, something happens that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Mr. Flannery comes by the building. Not unusual, he's always checking on his people, making the rounds, keeping track of who owes what and who needs help. But this time he's carrying a basket, a big one, heavy, turkey, a whole turkey, plucked and cleaned and ready for the oven, potatoes, carrots, onions, bread that's actually fresh, soft when you squeeze it, a bottle of whiskey, a bag of hard candies for the children, things you could never afford, things you've only seen in shop windows. "For the Callahans," he says, "Merry Christmas." Your mother doesn't know what to say. Neither do you. Mary has her hand over her mouth. The children are staring at the basket like it's made of gold. "Patrick was a good man," Mr. Flannery says. He's said this before, but tonight it sounds different, heavier, like he means it, like he actually remembers Patrick as a person, not just a name in his book. His family is our family. That's how this works. That's how we survive. He tips his hat and leaves before anyone can thank him properly. That's Mr. Flannery's way. He doesn't want gratitude. He wants loyalty. And he's just bought a little more of it. That night, you eat better than you have in months, maybe years, maybe ever. The turkey is golden and crispy, and when you bite into it, the meat falls apart in your mouth. The children are delirious with joy, stuffing themselves until their bellies are round. Mary is crying again, those good tears that come when something breaks open inside you. Your mother says grace in Irish, her voice steady and strong, thanking God for food and family and the chance to be together. You think about Patrick, about the man you never got to know, about everything he built before he died. the connections, the community, the web of loyalty and obligation that's now keeping his family fed on Christmas Eve. You think about what he must have gone through. The same factory, probably, the same machines, the same exhaustion and fear and hope. He did it for years before the typhoid took him. Years of feeding rods and dodging accidents and coming home to this apartment to Mary and the children. He built something. Even if he didn't live to see it, he built something that lasted. This is the Gilded Age. Not the mansions on Fifth Avenue. Not the balls where millionaires spend more on flowers than you make in a year. Not the carriages with the dogs wearing ribbons. This, a basket of food on Christmas Eve, a ward boss who remembers the people who showed up for him, a community that takes care of its own because nobody else will. It's not perfect. It's not fair. It's built on favours and votes and a system that's corrupt right down to its bones. Tomorrow Mr. Flannery will expect something in return. Tomorrow the machine will keep grinding. But tonight, it's keeping you fed. Tonight, it's giving your mother a Christmas dinner in a new country. Tonight, it's real, and it's warm, and it's yours. After dinner, after the children are asleep and Mary and your mother are talking quietly by the stove, you step outside. The city is quiet for once. Snow is falling, soft and steady, covering the garbage and the mud and all the ugly things. The gas lamps glow yellow through the white. Somewhere, church bells are ringing. You think about everything that's happened since you stepped off that ship. The fear, the confusion, Castle Garden and the dead horse in the street and the tenement that smelled like despair, the factory, the machines, Tommy with his missing finger, the man who lost his hand, the heat and the noise and the rhythm that got into your bones, the cold that killed O'Brien, the electric lights on Broadway, the Brooklyn Bridge stretching toward the sky, the parade, Murphy's dance hall, Bridget O'Connor and her sea-coloured eyes, your mother's face in the crowd at Castle Garden, the way she touched your cheek and called you a man. 1 year. 365 days. It feels like a lifetime. It feels like a moment. You're still poor. You're still tired. You're still sleeping on a floor in a building that should have been condemned years ago. But you're not the same person who got off that ship. You're harder now. Tougher. You know things about survival that the boy from Cork never imagined, and you're not alone. That's the part that matters most. You have Mary and the children. You have your mother. You have Bridget. You have Tommy and the men at O'Malley's, and even Mr. Flannery in his own corrupt way. You have a community, a place where you belong. The snow keeps falling. The bells keep ringing. The city keeps breathing, slow and steady like a sleeping giant. You go back inside. The apartment is warm. The stove is glowing. Your mother is already asleep in her spot, snoring softly. Mary is banking the fire for the night. "Merry Christmas, Seamus," she says. "Merry Christmas, Mary." You find your spot by the door. The floor is hard, familiar. The draft comes through the cracks, cold against your face. But you don't mind. Not tonight. Tonight everything is exactly as it should be. Tomorrow will bring more work, more struggle, more of the endless fight to survive in a city that doesn't care if you live or die. There will be more accidents at the factory, more friends lost to machines and disease and poverty, more battles between workers and bosses, between the people who have everything and the people who have nothing. The Gilded Age isn't over, it's barely begun. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, on this Christmas Eve in 1887, Seamus Callahan closes his eyes and lets himself rest. He thinks about Bridget, about asking her to marry him someday, about the life they might build together, about children of their own. born American, born free, born into a world that's slowly, painfully getting better. He thinks about his mother, about how she sold eggs and mended clothes for 2 years just to give him a chance, about how she crossed an ocean at 63 because her son sent for her, about how she's sleeping peacefully 3 feet away, finally warm, finally safe. He thinks about Patrick, about all the Patricks, all the Seamuses and Marys and Bridgets, all the people who came to this country with nothing but hope, who worked themselves into early graves, who never saw the future they were building but built it anyway. Millions of them, pouring off ships for decades, filling the tenements and the factories and the streets, building the bridges and the railroads and the buildings that rich men would put their names on. Their sacrifices weren't for nothing, can't be for nothing. Every nail Seamus makes becomes part of something larger. Every dollar he saves, every vote he casts, every time he shows up at a union meeting or a parade or a Sunday dinner with Bridget's family, he's adding one more brick to a wall that will take generations to finish. He doesn't know that yet. Not really. He's too tired to see the big picture, too focused on tomorrow's shift and next month's rent and whether he can save enough to marry Bridget before another year goes by. But someday, someone will look back at all of this, at the tenements, and the factories and the 12-hour days, at the children working machines and the men dying for pennies, at the whole bloody, brutal, beautiful mess of the Gilded Age, and they'll understand. This is how it started. This is how it always starts, with people at the bottom fighting for something better, with communities coming together because they have to, with small victories that add up, over decades, over generations, into something that looks almost like progress. The Gilded Age will end, the reforms will come, the unions will grow stronger, the children will go to school instead of factories, the days will get shorter, and the wages will get higher, and the tenements will eventually come down. Someday, people will work 8 hours instead of 12. They'll have weekends. They'll have safety regulations and minimum wages and the right to organise without being beaten by Pinkertons. Seamus won't live to see all of it. Nobody does. Change is too slow for any one lifetime, but it will happen, because people like him made it happen. One day at a time, one fight at a time, one saved dollar and one union vote and one St. Patrick's Day parade at a time. That's how the world changes, not with speeches from politicians or decisions from judges, with ordinary people refusing to give up. The candle flickers one last time. Mary blows it out. Darkness settles over the apartment, over Orchard Street, over the whole Lower East Side with its million stories, its million struggles, its million dreams. But it's a gentle darkness now, a peaceful darkness, the kind that feels like rest. Seamus Callahan lets his breathing slow, lets his muscles relax, lets the sounds of the city fade into something like silence. And maybe, wherever you are right now, you can let yourself do the same. Let your eyes close if they haven't already. Let your body sink into whatever softness is holding you. Let the story fade and the sleep come, soft and steady like snow falling on a quiet street. You're warm. You're safe. You're exactly where you need to be. Unlike Seamus on his wooden floor, you've got a real bed, a real pillow, heat that doesn't require feeding coal every few hours. You've got all the things that people like Seamus spent their whole lives fighting for, all the small comforts that used to be luxuries, all the progress that was paid for in sweat and blood and sacrifice. That's worth remembering. That's worth being grateful for. But not tonight. Tonight isn't for thinking. Tonight is for sleeping. So let yourself drift. Let the story settle into your bones like warmth. Let Seamus and Bridget and Mary and all the rest of them fade into dreams. They made it through. They always made it through. And so will you. The night is quiet now. The city is sleeping. Somewhere snow is falling on empty streets, covering everything in white. Rest now. You've earned it. Tomorrow will come soon enough, with its own challenges, its own battles, its own small victories. But that's tomorrow. Tonight you sleep, and maybe, just maybe, you dream of a world that's a little bit better than the one you woke up in. That's all any of us can do. That's all any of us have ever done. Good night.